yin, dorji sempagarab dorji dang. Shere singe baru shin lab de dang labzan tata tusum chi. Zog chen jupe lama la solo wa deb. Ergyen pema june la solo wa deb. Dorji chang chi tilo naru dang. Marpa mila gompo tsatsa pa. Na pupadang palden drupa suk. Kargil lama namla solo deb. O chen lama namla solo deb. Dru chen lama namla solo deb. Kagin wari lama namla solo deb. Shakya lama namla solo deb. Nyandu dayundrun lama namla solo deb. Palkondu zhongdang yerme pa. Gun garab dorji jintrag pa. Jetidang nisume pai. Alamanam chitente chong. Do we have any questions?
We do. I fell out of practice, but I'm easing back in. Should I ease back into post meditation or just dive in?
That will depend on what you mean by post-meditation. It's not a term I think of. There is no post-meditation, no after meditation. It's all meditation. Meditation doesn't end when you get off the cushion. However, until such time as stability is recognized, spend your time on the cushion. However, until such...
Yeah.
Next question.
Okay. Just setting up a sound level. About the 9 dimensions, could you please describe the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th?
I'm not sure I can in this moment. I can't always see all 9. And they are the 9 local dimensions. There's more than that, really. Suspecting that there are infinite everything everywhere. However, your first dimension is simply a point which has neither size nor duration and has no actual existence. Your second dimension is a line. It extends this way to infinity, but has no depth and no duration. Obviously, that which has no depth nor duration cannot exist actually. Your third dimension has depth, has width, has height, but still lacks duration. Therefore, even if it were to come into existence, it couldn't stay there. Your fourth dimension adds time to the space continuum, creating the time-space continuum, which holds itself open. Thereby, things appear to have depth, width, height, and duration. Your fifth dimension would be usually considered dream time, which itself has the usual 4 dimensions within it. 8. Your 9th dimension is macrocosm and microcosm, where bigger and smaller are actually directions. So that's one way to think of the 9. And probably the easiest. And what you hear out there is a neighbor cat attempting to visit who is not a friend with my cat. And cats are by nature not controllable. Next question.
Can you talk a bit more about the eastern direction? I've noticed that there is some fear often in the back of the mind recently. Possibly this is from being at home during COVID.
Quite probably. I think we all get a certain level of anywhere from fear to minor trepidation for breaking a year-long retreat and going out and about. Common experience. Not something to worry about. It will wear off. You've just been in retreat for a long time. The mandala of the Dhyani Buddhas is the basic mandala on which all other mandalas are based. It has the usual 5 directions: east, west, north, south, up and down. The eastern direction symbolizes the clarity of discriminating wisdom. What is discriminating wisdom? It's what allows you to look at something, like this computer screen, and perceive the difference between, say, myself and the background. Without it, you would just see color, shape, but you would not be able to discriminate between objects. What is the Lama? What is the altar? What is the Thangka? This is discriminating wisdom. It is clarity. Although in the beginning of meditation, you are taught to have your eyes half open and your vision unfocused, that itself matures into a non-point focus of clarity, where peripheral vision and central vision are equal. This is a form of equanimity, not emotional, but visual equanimity, which is achieved through relaxing the eyeballs without fuzzing oneself, without dropping one's chi in the channels too far. There's really no way of explaining how to do this. It generally will happen after a lot of practice on the cushion, where it's not just a blur in front of your eyes, but quite clearly precise, but in full range of vision. When this discriminating wisdom becomes confused by the original oops, which occurs in each moment, we don't have original sin. We don't have sin in Tibetan Buddhism. Digpa is not sin. Digpa is creating karma, the results of which you will not like. Gewa is creating karma, the results of which you and all others will like. Since you are not separate from all others, it is impossible to create digpa that affects only you. It affects the bugs in your gut, your biome. It affects your mandala, your perceptions. So when the Eastern direction is confused by primordial oops, which is not long, long ago and far, far away, but is something that occurs in each second, you reify, you make real your perception. That's the oops. You think it's really there. I think that's really a cup of coffee over there. Leading to desire. Leading to action, leading to more feelings. The action results in pleasure, causing even more desire. I do like a good coffee. So this leads to confusion. The confusion traditionally symbolized, not attributed to, the Eastern direction is that of fear and anger. Fear and anger are pretty much the same thing in this mandala. For example, if you are angry at someone, it's because you perceive they have the ability to do you harm. Fear's in there. Some of us, because of childhood conditioning, I grew up as a street kid in Hell's Kitchen. From, early teens on. So under those circumstances, I am conditioned not to show fear. If they see you're scared, they'll eat you. Or so was the culture there and then. So I learned early on to flip all fear into anger. If somebody scares you, hit them, chase them, get in their face. Be fiercer and crazier than they are to make them go away. This is childhood conditioning of mine. Some people have the opposite. If you're a good girl, if you were raised as a good girl, wanting to please your family and the adults and the teachers around you, and feeling that it was possible for you to do so, you may have learned that showing anger was not good. Good girls aren't angry, they are amenable, kindly, non-confrontational, and they go along with things. Well, so whenever you have anger, you flip it into fear. You don't go, that guy pisses me off. You go, that guy scared the shit out of me. They come together, fear and anger. And depending on your conditioning, will depend on which one you currently have predominantly. But in general, you're always going to have both. Fear makes you grouchy. Grouch usually arises out of anxiety. They are related. This is symbolized by the Eastern direction, pure white, the white of moonlight in color, which is the discriminating wisdom of equanimity, which sees all things as they are, and therefore has no need to grasp towards you or shove away from you, which are the karmic creating actions. All actions can be brought down to grabbing and shoving in some way, although we complicate it incredibly. When I plant seeds in my garden, I am grabbing at my desire to have flowers. When I weed my garden, I am shoving at my desire to not have weeds, to be weed-free. So this is your eastern direction. There are several levels of working with this mandala. However, in the beginning levels, you antidote fear and anger, east, with open-hearted, great-hearted, loving kindness, west. So when you feel fear, anger towards something, you intentionally arise the feeling of open-hearted, loving kindness towards that thing that you feel fear and anger towards. This works in a very temporary manner around here, and for now. It is not a permanent solution, but it helps. It's the outer level of working with this. On the inner level, you use tantra and mantra. The mantra which antidotes fear, anger are manis. They're specific to it. Just as the green Tara mantra works predominantly in the northern direction, Chenrezig works predominantly in the western direction. It brings forth those feelings of soft, gentle, loving kindness, which will be the antidote to fear, anger. So what you can do, especially when you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by fear, anger, is to grab your mala and say some manis. You can also do this when somebody else's fear, anger is overwhelming you. Say you have an encounter with some person, an anti-masker, and you're wearing a mask because there's kids around and you know kids aren't vaccinated. So you have an encounter and they start screaming and getting in your face and grabbing at your mask, and you feel fear and anger. If you start manis here, realizing that they are acting on their fear and anger, what they've done with their fear of death and illness is to flip it around to be afraid of protecting themselves from it because it makes them think about it. So if you start humming manis under your breath, even if you're just a bystander to this perception, occurrence, it will over time soothe it down, gentle the situation. It also works on colicky babies. If you by chance have a baby that won't go to sleep, sing manis. Works every time. Takes a little while, but it works, provided you remove whatever pain is bothering the baby. You know, first change it dry, feed it, find out if it's got a pin sticking in it somewhere. Then use manis. Next question.
How do we remember to carry over the commitments and vows like tantra and bodhisattva we made in this life to our next one, if we can't even remember our past lives?
Why, you simply practice them well in this life and they will become an automaticity by next time. You don't even really remember moment to moment. When you look at one of your memories, pick a memory, last Thursday, whatever. If you can remember last Thursday. In this memory, what you are actually doing is bringing up memory of a memory. You don't know what happened last Thursday. All you know is your interpretation of your sensations called perceptions, what you thought about it and how you felt about it. And now you are again looking at that. It's changed. You changed it. Because you're in a different mood, you've got a different biome by now. You're a different person ever so slightly. Memories are most unreal. Even the tool of mindfulness is only effective so far. However, habits are very effective. If you develop the habit in this life of keeping your vows, it will have two karmic results. One, you will almost instinctively keep to that same pattern early in life. Two, you will be led towards. You will encounter an opportunity to retake them early in life. This is useful. This is the karmic results of keeping them. Also, depending on the vows, such as if you keep the Bodhisattva vows well, you will be likable. People will like you. If you spent your childhood unliked by your fellow children, school teachers, and others around you, you can see clearly the value in being likable. That arises from the practice of Bodhichitta, which is the practice of liking others. And when it becomes a habit, it comes back towards you appropriately. The vows are just guidelines of how to effectively work with this in a wide variety of circumstances which used to arise at the time of the Buddha. Some of them do not arise often here in this culture. Others are quite relevant at this time and place. So you look within the vow and the letter of the vow for the meaning of the vow and how it would apply to your current culture. What is the equivalent of a Shravakya here and now? And how should you behave towards them? Tantric vows are a bit more specific. They are a support system, just as a little old lady may need a walker to go about as her support system. So a practitioner, especially with Tantra, which is a difficult practice of transformation, needs the support system of the tantric precepts to support that practice. For example, you will find your tantric practice negatively affected if you live too long together with non-tantric practitioners, especially if they are intensely practicing some lineage which is against Tantra, such as some of the more intense Baptist Christian sides, Orthodox Judaism, or certain Muslim sects. Other Christian sects, such as Methodist, other Jewish sects, such as Reformed, will probably not interfere as much. So you have to look at that tantric vow, where it says not to live with, I'm trying to remember how it phrases it, non-tantric practitioners. If you are really going gonzo on your tantra, where you're doing it 24/7, following that will help. Next question.
I have a lot of troubles finding a yidam to practice. What are ways to know which one you already have a connection with?
Well, that's simple. You like them. You see their picture and you go, oh, that's cool. And not just because it has teeth in its penis. I'm thinking of a protector who is not traditionally practiced as a yidam. Certain archetypes, protectors, in most lineages are not practiced as a yidam. For example, in the Galug and I believe the Kargyu and Shakya, Singhi Dongchenma is not taken as a yidam, whereas in the Nyingma it can be. For example, Ekazati is usually not taken as a yidam, nor is Osel Chenmo, except in the aspect of Tara, of which they are emanations. So first, get a picture book. Google Yidams and look at all the pictures that come up. See who you really, really like, and not just because they're drooling blood. Look for more of a heart feeling towards it. Find its name, and ask your teacher at that time if it would be suitable for you. You hadn't ought to be doing Yidam practice without a teacher. Tantra requires a guide. As does Dzogchen. However, Keirim and Sutrayana do not. And most people will practice Sutrayana, reading Dharma texts, thinking about them, contemplating the Lam Rim for a very long time. Months, years, lifetimes, before they feel ready to find a teacher and enter into a tantric stream. In some systems, Dzogchen is considered an aspect of Maha-Anuttara Tantra. In other systems, it is considered to be separate and its own thing. These are thoughts, ways of thinking about it. No more real than any other thoughts or ways of thinking about anything. Next question.
Lama Lena once told a story about seeing a Cyclopean woman with a red dog in a city. Was it Ekadzati, and would she be willing to talk more about this?
When I had practiced as a Hindu sadhu, and practiced well in the forests of the Himalayas, up the Ganges, towards its root, for long and long I practiced there and received teachings, and I developed some magical powers, enough so that I had a string of, I guess, disciples, other Hindu sadhus, Indian guys, some women, who would follow me around in the forest because I had the magical power to manifest anything wanted. So if we were walking in the forest and they were hungry, they'd start talking out loud about what they wanted to eat. And I'd hear them, and sometimes I would also feel hungry and want that. And sometimes I'd simply understand that they wanted it and so want it for them. And so we'd come around a bend in the path and find exactly what had been described, set out on a rock on leaf plates with no one around. And so we'd eat it. That's why they followed me. I fed them, apparently. I was always trying to sneak away and wake up in the middle of the night when they were all asleep and sneak off, because I didn't want to be followed by disciples, and I wasn't teaching. I didn't have anything to teach. I had only one thing I knew, which was one was enough. And I kept to it. I wore one earring, one bracelet. I had one pair of pants, one shirt, one shawl, one bag with a lota in it. You always have a water container. And a candle. Water, fire, earth is all around you, as is wind and sky. But you carry with you a container for water and a fire source, matches and a candle when you're a sadhu. It's very specific teachings of how to be a sadhu. And they actually will generate certain magical powers. So at some point, I noticed I was having this magical power. I'd lost my tail somewhere in the night. And I wandered into a town that was having a bit of a festival. I think it might have been Rishikesh, which was small in those days. And leaning against a lamppost, I looked around, and I knew that I could have anything I want. But I didn't want anything. I was just fine, which is why I could make anything I wanted. So I stayed there long, and it was a hot day. And after a while, I began to experience a little bit of hunger and thirst. And I thought to myself, I'd like a nice bowl of cold yogurt. That's what I would like. And so I imagined it. And at that point, a very beautiful Japanese hippie, dressed in flowing, beautiful silk garments, carrying a golden horn with long flowing hair down to his butt, gorgeous young man, walked up to me and said, "Hello. I'm on my way to the yogurt shop. Would you care to join me?" There's my yogurt, okay. So I went to the yogurt shop with him, and while I was sitting across from him, eating my yogurt, a fly with great enthusiasm fell in and drowned. I thought to myself, well, this is not going to go well, an inauspicious omen. I should stop now, having fished the fly out and found it very dead. However, I did not listen to myself. I kept going. I looked at the really beautiful man. I mean, he was gorgeous, svelte and slender, but with good muscle tone, pale golden skin in its perfection, long flowing hair down his butt, and well decorated in flowing purple silks. And I thought, man, I want the man. I want to have sex with this man. And the man said to me, "Where do you stay?" I said, "Nowhere, in the jungle, wherever I find myself at sundown." He said, "Well, I have a really nice big hotel room. Would you like to come home with me?" "Why, yes, thank you." So I went home with the man, and we had lovely sex, and I had a shower. And I was sitting in my tattered single shirt and pants on the veranda of the hotel. He'd ordered us, I guess, iced lemonade, which was very good. I was looking around at all the well-dressed people and thinking, I don't match. If I'm going to be staying with this man in this hotel for a little while, I need different clothes. And a young woman of about my size walked up to me and said, "I'm joining an ashram tomorrow. You look about my size. I'm joining an ashram, and I need to get rid of all my stuff because I will be wearing robes. Would you like my clothes?" I liked her taste in what she was wearing at the time. So I had a wardrobe of lovely silks in the colors I liked that fit just right. Anyway, through this and that, it went on and on. I grew tired of the man. There was another man. I rode the rails up to the Nepali border, and from there I rode the buses and ended up in Nepal. Living here and there in Nepal, I ended up with two lovely men. They rather matched. One was Indian and one was Swedish or something. Dark and blonde. Lovely pair. They fought occasionally, but not too bad. It's hard to put two men together when you want a pair. They fight. Unless you find them already as a pair. I didn't know this yet. And a mansion. And of course, all the silks to wear, and of course the men needed clothes, and it was getting expensive, and my powers were wearing off. I'd been spending them rather a lot. So, with the last of my powers, I magicked up a couple of jobs. I ended up working as an engineer designing a highway through the Terai. Nicely paid in the daytime. Managing a restaurant in the evening, which was actually my front for a forgery business which went on afterwards during the night. Needless to say, I wasn't getting enough sleep. Working 3 jobs to support the man, the mansion, the dry cleaning bills, the hairdresser, because you have to look right for all this. And one day, in those days, there were not many cars in Kathmandu. Everything was by bicycle. I had a fine bicycle. I was on my way to my work as an engineer on the bicycle when I had to stop because a herd of buffalo on their way to the slaughterhouse were going by. And you don't cross a herd of buffalo, you let it finish. While I waited for them to pass, looking across the street, I saw a one-eyed old woman with one tooth grinning, with a red dog beside her with its tongue hanging out and a big grin on its face. And she pointed directly at me and burst out laughing. And I thought to myself, she's got a friggin' point. I could have done this in Teaneck, New Jersey. What the fuck am I doing? This is not what I'm out here for. So I took the bicycle and I rode on down the street and did not cross to the turn to go to work. Did not go to work. Rode to the end of the roads and left the bicycle there and started walking out into the rice paddies that surrounded the city in those days. And came after a time where it got wilder and wilder to a hill, and I walked up it. Why not? See what's up there. And at the top there was an old farmhouse. And there was a man in Tibetan robes walking in the garden. And he said hello to me. And I said hello to him. And then I decided to ask him the question that was in my mind. Do you guys, you Tibetans, have something that neither requires maintenance nor wears off? He said, yes, we do, actually. I said, can you show me? He's like, stick around a while. I'll show you, but stick around a while. So I did. That was Lama Tupten Yeshi, who happened to be walking in the garden of Kopan, which was just an old farmhouse that he lived in with a couple of students, and occasionally they did some courses and things. Mostly out in a field and in a tent. And I worked there building the permanent structures. I was there for about 3 years with occasional periods to go refresh my visa or make retreat in India, where there was a retreat center in Dharamsala. That's the story. Explain it how you will to yourself. Next.
A couple of related questions about weather control. I often hear of old Tibet using magic to influence and control the weather. Could it be used in times of climate change to help with rain issues? And a second person also asked, are there any specific prayers to stop heat and drought and bring rain.
Yes and yes. However, the reason for the drought, you have to look back at the karma created that causes the drought. Global warming, the disarrangement of the climate, which in the Tibetan kind of perception is seen as one has disturbed Gaia's immune system. They are called mamos. Just as we have white blood cells in our body which fight infection, so Earth, Mother Nature, Tara of the acacia forest, the old Mother Nature spirit from long before Buddhism incorporated. Her immune system is the mamos. Ekazati is their queen. They are upset by the behavior, the infection, the inflammation, which is the fever, the global warming. Would it really be a good idea to make this go away before people actually finish noticing it and maybe change their behavior? When you use magic to mess with the larger mandala, you have to be a bit careful. There are things you can do, but you must preface them with, if this is of benefit to all life, may it be effective. And end them with the same statement. Because some things that you think will be of benefit, like a dam on a river, benefits so many people with electricity, and there's spillways for the salmon, and it's all going to work. Oops. It created problems. So you don't know that you're right long term. Be cautious about mucking with stuff, with magic. Little things are a bit safer. I doubt I did much ecological giant damage wanting a bowl of yogurt or a man. Little things. Cup of coffee. Oh, aversion. It's empty. In a few minutes.
All right.
Let's have another question.
When one realizes emptiness, does one stop creating karma?
Levels within levels. All actions create karma. To simply realize emptiness fully, yes, one is no longer creating karma, however, one remains constructed of karma. To realize emptiness seems like a really strange way to put it, because what I'm talking about here is recognizing the inherent emptiness of all phenomena, not as a thought, a feeling, or a perception. Not thinking it's all empty, that's a method of getting there. Not feeling it's all emptiness, that's another method of getting there. Not even perceiving emptiness, which is on the way. being that. Indescribable. Doing and not doing cease to be relevant. Karma is simply the natural law of how the fourth dimensional space-time continuum is open. It's not moving, pervading all time and space. No thing occurs or ever has. You see, I can't talk about this effectively. Practice. Practice until the original giggle occurs. Next question.
Can you be a practicing Buddhist and still enjoy a happy and prosperous mundane life? Or are those mutually exclusive?
They are not mutually exclusive. Why not? You are unlikely, with two goals, happy, prosperous, mundane life and enlightenment, to actually achieve completely either one of them. As in, sometimes you will be sad and things will go wrong for you. And although you may attain many realizations, you will still remain on the wheel. Still, you will have your nose going in the right direction, and enlightenment doesn't happen in one lifetime. It's something you work at for quite a number of them before it actualizes. They say it takes about 400 from the decision to go for it until the actualization. However, nobody says how many you've done already. Could be 399. Depends. Next question.
Questions about smoking and other addictions. Does smoking cigarettes affect a practitioner's karma? And related to that is, can you offer teachings on overcoming an addiction such as alcohol or food, and how we can help others who are addicted but not practicing?
I do not have advice on overcoming addictions that will work on anybody but me. I'm autistic. I'm weird. I don't have an addictive personality. I have periodically gotten myself addicted to things, and then just at some point gotten bored with them and stopped doing them. This includes heroin, so not a problem. It got boring. I decided I wanted to do something else. Yes, cold turkey feels like having the flu. Well, okay, you've tolerated the flu. You can live with that. It's only a week or so. And then you're no longer addicted. This is not going to work on other people. So I have no idea why that method of just getting bored with it and wandering off works on me. So to first say, I don't have advice. However, many people find 12-step programs effective. Many people find taking vows against the substance to their teacher effective. Good luck. Yes, addictions are bad for you. For example, there are many practices you cannot do while you smoke. Can't even burn incense while you're working on some of them. Or go near a fire or polluted air. Certain practices have to be done high up, out of scent of any burning. If you smoke, you can't do those practices. Other practices are simply made more difficult, like Nunye. Drinking certainly can be problematic. Mine got a bit much during lockdown. I slowly went from a glass of wine with supper to a bottle of wine with supper. And then I started feeling sick and got bored with it. And I'm back to about a glass of wine. And not every night. However, that's not going to work on other people. So, I don't know what to tell you here. I have assorted addictions. I go through them, and then I get bored with them and wander off. So it goes. If that is not the case for you, the best thing is to avoid them in the beginning. Don't start. If you find that they've already occurred, find a method that works for you. And that's, I guess, what I can tell you. Next question.
One moment, I had it in front of me here. Yes. Could you say something about the use of pe? When to pop what is there versus when to just rest in what is there?
When it appears to be stuck or stable, that's when you hit it with pe. If you are alone on the cushion. Pet is for use on the cushion. It is not for use in the grocery store. Yes, it can be disguised as a sneeze if you really have something stuck, but not the best idea. There are a few people who suddenly start hallucinating when they're out at the grocery store and who I've taught to use it disguised as a sneeze. But that's unusual, and that's because their brain chemicals tend to cack in a certain way. For most of you, you use pet, the seed syllable, the magic word, while sitting on the cushion, and you use it properly. When an experience, traditionally of clarity, bliss, being free of thought, arise, these meditative signposts, these experiences, when they happen sitting on the cushion and they seem to be there, and you like them, and you think you're getting somewhere and you want to keep them. These are all symptoms of it being a yam. That's when you use pet, but you have to use it properly or it won't work. It has to be sudden. You got to sort of sneak up on yourself. It has to be sharp. It has to be fierce. It needs to have these three characteristics. Pet. It also must be done while looking directly at the experience you are popping. In the moment it pops, for a moment, a little bit, there is a brief moment where the mind is not making any construct. There is utter simplicity. Rest there. If you make the noise, say, pet. When you are not looking there, all you're going to do is startle your fleas. And what's the point in that? Next question.
From our Spanish listeners, how does an autistic person develop compassion?
Oh, you misunderstand autism. It is too much. It's not lack of what's that word? Where you feel for others.
Empathy?
It's not lack of empathy, it's too damn much so that it hurts and it fizzes. And fizzing hurts like fuck. When you're with a person, and especially if you look into their eyes, it's too bright. You see too much. You can't just normally do it. It's always wide open. And then the brain fizzes, the channel pattern goes psee, like a cat that's seen a vacuum cleaner, and squeaks, of course, and you have to run away and flap. It's not lack of empathy that makes up autism. It's too damn much, too much brightness. It's a sensory processing issue where the sound, the sight, the smells, I'm extremely smell sensitive as well, the tastes, that's why I'm a good cook, the feelings that you feel with your yi, you don't have a rheostat to turn it down the way normal people do. And meltdowns are just what happens when you get so totally overwhelmed that you can't. And so being autistic is not necessarily a handicap. It gives you certain advantages. Incredible abilities to focus. Now, we're all different. There are layers within layers. Because it is very easy for me not to separate point vision and peripheral vision and to open my eyes in that way, I cannot find anything among many other things. Other people are the opposite. My grandson Alaric, who's also very autistic, cannot stand not to have everything out. Does not use cabinets. It's got to be all spread around where he can see all of it all at once. With me, it has to be in a very specific place or I'll never find it again. Because if the scissors are in a jumbled drawer on the wrong side of the drawer, I could spend half an hour going through that drawer without seeing them. Nyandu had to rescue me for the salad tongs last night. They live on the right-hand side of the drawer, but someone put them away on the left-hand side and I couldn't see them. However, it does make it easier for certain kinds of dzogchen and meditation. The ability to go 100% into a subject. We get SOIs, subjects of interest. This is for all you autistic folks out there. The ability to go into that, if you pick dharma as your subject of interest, you're going to go far and fast. Because you're not distracted, you're not forcing yourself, you're not spread. That's your subject of interest, just like it might have been trains or dinosaurs, thinking of a cousin and a grandson. Cousin is trains and models and World War II boats, I think. And grandson was dinosaurs, but right now I think it's robots. He's probably going to be amazing in robotics when he grows up. If he can just learn methods of working with the meltdowns. That was hard. And I actually had one a few days ago. I've learned not to show them, but oh God, was I sick for 2 days. Happens. It just totally sends your channels into... It feels like a frightened cat Can't explain it any other way. So it is both something you're going to have to learn the workarounds for your own type, such as having a place for everything and putting it in it for me, such as Alaric just not owning any cabinets if he can possibly help it because he doesn't want to use them. And they take up space that he could have stuff in. I think open shelves are okay with him, but I'm not sure whether it all has to be spread on one level or not. If you are autistic, figure out what your superpowers are and what the stuff is that you'll have to work around. You'll notice I'm always refusing people one-on-ones. I do small groups. A small group just diffuses it enough that it won't fizz me. But you get less than 6 or 7 people in the group and I may call it cut it short. It's why I don't do one-on-ones. They friggin' hurt. Too bright. Besides, you don't want me poking around in you on that level, and I can't not if we're one-on-one. So find out what your strengths are. It's usually ability to focus in some way and certain sensitivities that you can use. You may have an eidetic memory for visualizations, for images. That's great for tantra. Find out what your superpowers are if you're autistic. You have them. Aim them. Find out what things you're just going to have to work around because they don't work well. For me, it's too much socialness. I have to really be careful how much I do. I can do some, but not too much. Learn to modify and work with it. And that's said for all you Aspies and Auties out there. Because I know there's a lot that come to Dharma, because most people come to Dharma because they notice they're broken and they're looking for a fix. Right? Next question.
It feels to me like there is never enough time. Why is that? If time is ultimately an illusion, is there some way to manipulate it?
I bet you're about 40 years old. Where that happens in life, it's a common occurrence, not enough time. I had it for a while myself. Somewhere in your 40s and 50s, in your prime, where you're raising your family and your parents are getting old and there's never enough time to get it all done. And this can last until you're old, when you give up on getting it all done and just do some of it because you realize that you don't have a lot of time left. Especially when we sell our time, we don't have much left. You sell your time for money. That's called working at a shit job. Rather than getting money from doing something that interests you and that is a learning experience. When you sell your time for money, you're selling something even more valuable than your ass. Yes, time is infinite. But your karma is also infinite, and this lack of time is a karmic experience. How to have more time when you're lacking it? Do less stuff, and you will have more time. So, simplify. Do you spend a lot of time cleaning your house? What attracts dirt most? Got tchotchkes that need dusting? Get the fuck rid of them. Find ways to simplify. Some people even take robes because, boy, do you gain a lot of time when you're not messing with clothes or trying to make a supper, adorning your body, styling your hair, putting on makeup. You stop all that crap and look at all the time you got. Consider it. Contact Annie Palmo to discuss the benefits of being a nun or a monk. Works for some people very, very well. Next question.
I have come across an addiction to sadness and traced it to playing a fearful victim. Any advice on how to deal with these patterns?
Ooh, that one must really be uncomfortable. Yes, I've seen it. I think for you, the fastest way out of that will be Yidam practice and identifying with your Yidam. I'm guessing from the question that you might be female. Tara or Vajrayogini. This pattern of being a victim will often come upon someone who is conditioned not to be pissed off, which more often happens to women. So when people do bad things to a woman and she can't be angry at them because anger is bad, she becomes a fearful victim. Commonly imposed cultural pattern. Worse in Asia, if you come from any Asian cultures. But bad enough around here. Not too bad in Scandinavia, actually, that one. You know, the Dutch have other hang-ups, too. To counter it, powerful, fierce, female, Yidam. How about Kurukuli? Can you turn that just a minute and show Kurukuli there?
To this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Think it.
Or turn it to the next one. Vajrayogini.
Yeah, that one might not be in.
Visible?
Well, focus. Oh no, it's showing.
Either of those.
Okay, now we have them both in there.
Okay, back to me. Or, should you wish to really go outside of pattern, Purba. Now we're on this one.
Okay, it should show. Okay,
Yeah, the dark one right here with all the heads and teeth.
yes.
Back to me. Undertaking a Yidam, being the Yidam, turning into your Yidam. If you were to do that with full gonzo, would probably counter it fast enough. You could also, if you are skilled in direct meditation and Dzogchen, simply directly perceive the pattern as it arises and as it dissipates, recognizing that it has no duration but merely resurges again and again due to habit. And focus your attention not on the pattern, but on the ground in which it arises, allowing it to complete itself and wear off, without acting on it by grasping the ideas, feelings, and perceptions it causes. That's more difficult. Tantra's a little easier. And the easiest of all, I suppose, if neither of those would work, is go find a good therapist. Now that you know it's there, there is something called, oh damn, the name of that particular therapy, which has to do with changing how you think of things. Can you remember?
EMR?
No.
No.
No, it's a talk therapy.
Cognitive behavioral?
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
You might try that. Frankly, I'd synergize that with Tantra, with occasionally attempting the Dzogchen to see how it worked. I think, at your stage. Might as well hit it from all sides. It's a very annoying pattern, and it's not going to make you happy. Next question.
Is there a green air element Vajrasattva, and if so, what is it used for?
There may be, but I do not know of one. So I can't answer that.
Okay. To remember past lives, why is it necessary to practice Chin Rezig and Tonglen?
Safety issue. You really need to have a skill of refuge. The easiest way to be certain that someone has a strong refuge skill is to make them do Chen Rezig until they get a sign, and they can take refuge in Chen Rezig. And through that, into open awareness. This is because when you open that, it just might be a can of worms. Suppose you find out in your memory that your last life you were a child molester, a mass murderer, or you were tortured to death and have the memories. How are you going to deal with that when it jumps up in your face? Safety issue. I want to make sure that if, most people don't, most people it's fine, 9 out of 10. But if you hit something that really disturbs you, you have a method to deal with it. Also, the purpose of remembering past lives is not simply to remember past lives. It's to change your perspective and shake loose that self-centered clutching of individuality, which is the root error that leads to duality. So you are going to spread out in time and space rather than maintain your singularity through this retreat. Being able to speak the language of animals and understand what they're saying and to remember past lives are simply side effects. They're not the main point.
A couple of related questions about sickness and death.
Yes.
One writes, I went through 2 years of cancer treatment and was near death. I went through a period of what I now see as enlightenment. Is there a relationship between near death and natural enlightenment? A second person asks, how do we overcome a fear of sickness and death?
Okay, this is going to take some at length. Nyanda, would you be kind enough to bring me some bubbly water while I answer this?
Yes.
And maybe even another coffee?
Yes, of course.
So first of all, that was not enlightenment. How can you tell? It wore off. It was a nyam. Any traumatic experience can cause a nyam. Going near-death experiences often cause very pleasant nyams afterwards until they wear off. That wasn't enlightenment. Pity you didn't know to hit it with pet. You might have seen the real one behind it. Fear of death is fear of the unknown. You don't know what it is. You don't know what will happen. You will be out of control. That's scary to most people. Refuge is effective for fear if you accomplish refuge. It's not just reciting the refuge mantra. It is a feeling of there being a safe place for me, where I am safe from all of it, beyond the edge of space, outside of time. The utterly free dance of stillness. That's my safe place. Where's yours? Is it the loving warmth of Tara? Or of Chenrezig? Is it the pure brilliance of Amitabha, the innate life force of the universe? Is it to be your yidam, unshakable and unshaken? Is it your teacher, knowing they've got your back on a psychic level? You need a refuge. It is the basis of this path. There are levels of refuge. In the very beginning, one takes refuge in the words of the Buddha, believing that he found something and was wiser than you, and so by this, you can trust those, and when you are afraid, you can read the sutras and be soothed knowing that they are true. Sutrayana. Tantrayana. Direct recognition of the Sambhogakaya nature of mind, the archetypes which arise, the great peaceful ones of the heart chakra, channels, and the fierce ones of the form chakra channels, dancing through the neural tissue and the channels of the body, energies personified. You are that. Centralized as your yidam and standing as that. Mother Nature, Green Tara. Open-hearted, great-hearted hero Chenrezig. Fierce point. Purba. Free dancer, unconstrained. Pagmo. All of these to be that in the mandala of that. Safe place. to rest between the moments in the infinitude which is always present, as the infinitude which is always present, allowing the moment's full freedom. Safe place. The first teaching, the first step in practicing Dharma is to find your safe place, to take refuge. It is not simply going to a ceremony and getting a new name. That's not refuge. Although for some it is part of it. Really, it's finding your safe place. Because there's crap going down, inside and outside. You need a place to be safe from it. Hence, refuge. Root of all practice. You do not belong in the upcoming retreat, which includes remembering past lives, if you have not got refuge. And I don't mean have not attended a ceremony. I mean have not got it in your heart. Next question.
Let's see if I can't find it now, but somebody was asking about what does it mean to take Bodhisattva vows blind?
It's a sign that you are ready for them. That you have the outward focused Bodhichitta sufficiently, that you are, and refuge in the Dharma sufficiently in this path, that you are actually willing to step forward into this without knowing what's in here. There's a lot of people who really don't get Bodhichitta. Really don't get that Bodhichitta is the ability to offer yourself for others. People who would not even get a vaccine at some minor danger to themselves. Yes, you might have an immune reaction. You might get a blood clot. To protect others. All you unvaccinated out there, you can hear me. You're not vaccinated because you think it is dangerous to you. Unless you're totally crazy, in which point you're probably not on here. Under those circumstances, recognizing that your lack of vaccine is dangerous to others. If you are unable to choose for the sake of others rather than for yourself, you shouldn't be at the Bodhisattva vows. It's not time yet. You're not ready. If you are willing to become ready, whatever it takes, you should be there. And they will help you become so. In Mahayana, they are the root. Refuge and Bodhichitta, it's what you do before every session. You take refuge and arise Bodhichitta, because nothing works without that basis. You can't do tantra without refuge and Bodhichitta. It won't work. You're just saying nonsensical words and imagining funny things. It won't actually do its thing without that foundation. Build the foundation. Take refuge and arise, Bodhichitta. Care for others before you care for yourself, without damaging yourself to this purpose. Weigh it. Find the ways to move forwards. In open-hearted great-heartedness. Mahayana, great vehicle, is the path of the hero. It's the path in which we're all in there together. If you do not choose this path, if you do not wish to practice Mahayana, that's fine. The little boat, Hinayana. Little boat is not lesser, it's just that the boat goes by the self. It's a one-person kayak. Practice Theravada. If you do not wish to practice Mahayana. But it doesn't do tantra. And it doesn't do Dzogchen. It does other things, like renunciation. Go that way, if you choose. Valid path. But not one I can take you on, because I haven't studied much of it. Oh, I had one Goenka course once for 10 days. Doesn't count in 50 years of study. Do we have another question?
Yes. I think next weekend is the annual Guru Rinpoche Day. Would you share a bit about Guru Rinpoche? And the second person is wondering if you can use Guru Rinpoche for realizing refuge.
Yes, you can. Excellent refuge. Guru Rinpoche is the archetype of the wild tantric guru. His behavior did not fit the judgments of the societies he walked in. He was expelled and executed at times, expelled at times, ostracized at times for not following the rules of society. He is an archetype. His life, like Merlin's life, another archetype that I am fond of, may possibly be an amalgam of any number of historical people. But since there really is no such thing as history, there's only stories, I'll go with the Tibetan ones on Guru Rinpoche for the most part. It is thought he was born in a place called Urgyen, which may have been somewhere in Afghanistan or Pakistan in the high mountains there. Some say Swat Valley, some say Bamiyan or Bandiamir, which is in Afghanistan. I believe there's a few places up Pakistan way that also claim to it. So he is from that part of the world. Dark-haired, somewhat swarthy-skinned, but aristocratic. Born or found or reborn, because birth and death are merely stories experienced. The archetype of the tantric master as the great lover. not denying passion, but manifesting passion as enlightenment, which is Tantra, the transformation, the peacock feather. So many stories. The Tibetans did not take well to Sutrayana when it was brought up, it being a bit too dry, and they being a passionate culture. Guru Rinpoche brought that very passion up in the tantras, to which they took extremely well and practiced to very great effect. If Tantra is your path, he's a good refuge. He symbolizes the teacher who is necessary to walk that path. Tantra's cliff climbing. Sutrayana is a nice graded road that goes round and round up the mountain in a spiral. Tantra, you're going up the cliff. You need a guide for that. There's routes that work and routes that you're just going to hit an overhang and not make it. And in general, for Tantra, you're roped together with your teacher. If you fall off and flap and writhe a certain way, you're likely to pull them off too. We've lost a few teachers to that. People practicing the tantric path here in the West who were not suitable. And so, falling off the cliff, they writhed and flapped and knocked their teacher off too. We lost some pretty incredible teachers to those unready to practice Tantra. I'm rather careful about who I might accept as a student of Tantra, making rather sure that they're capable of that for a long time, having seen some of the accidents of teaching it too soon to those who are not ready. Same for Dzogchen. Oh, I'll teach it openly, but that's not necessarily accepting someone as a direct student. That takes time. Next question.
When do you apply the 7-branch practice? Can you please talk a little bit about that?
No, not today. Give me a different one.
Okay. Can one take refuge in multiple aspects at once? For example, refuge in Chenrezig and Tara? Or is it better to focus on one?
Oh, of course. They're all the same thing. There's no difference between Chenrezig and Tara. If you wish to, you can take refuge in all the archetypes at once. What you are taking refuge in is a symbol for you of enlightenment, your own innate, natural Buddha nature. I don't care what symbols you use as long as they work for you.
Is there anything wrong or inappropriate about saying manis while driving? I have a long commute and like to use that time to practice. Any advice?
Manis are fine. There are certain practices that must not be done while driving, such as chud. Don't ever try memorizing your chud songs while driving. Any practice that I've said, do not do this while operating heavy machinery. Don't do it while driving. A car is a heavy machine. But Mani's Tara mantra, basic mantra, that should be fine. Reciting prayers shouldn't be a problem for most prayers. Most. Don't do chud. There's probably a few others I can't think of offhand. I wouldn't try doing song there either. I wouldn't try doing anything that involved feeding spirits. I wouldn't use the fiercer mantras at that time. But yeah, Mani's Tara, that's fine. Next.
Are there resources available to learn chud practice?
Yes, there are. Email me and I will refer you on to someone I know is teaching it in English. It would be Nyingma Troma Chud. If you wish to learn Machik Chud, you should actually go to Tsultro Malioni for that, as she is a manifestation of Machik Lapdrong, a reincarnation of that. And it's great to get it from the horse's mouth. So definitely, if you want to learn Karguline Machik, Tsultro Malioni is your person, and we'll teach it in English. She has retreat courses in the summer. If you can't afford her prices, look into volunteer work. I know there are circumstances that let people come there. And just Google her. You'll find her. She's great for Machik. And for Troma, send me an email and I'll send you on to someone. I am not teaching it myself at this time, mostly because I can't carry a tune. And you really need to learn it from somebody who can sing. Next question.
Could you please mention some examples of signs of efficacy from Chenrezig practice?
No. Oh, wait a minute. I'll tell you what it was for me. After doing the sadhana daily and running the mantra 24/7 while working on a construction site, I actually saw with my eyes Chenrezig in the western sky at sunset. That's a sign. I don't expect you to have the same one. You're different from me. But I expect you to have one that is strong and unmistakable for you. Or keep going. If you want to work that retreat with me, you've got to have a solid refuge. And in that pattern or system, we use Chenrezig for that, for reasons which will become obvious as we go along. If you have a solid refuge, it shouldn't take you long to associate it with Chenrezig. If you don't, just really intensely work that practice until you get a sign that it has settled for you, at least for a little while. And this is a safety issue. I won't take you spelunking without a helmet either. I love spelunking. Although I may be a little bit too wide and stiff to get into some of the places I used to once. Next question.
Let's see. who should practice Nundro? Can one do Nundro and Trekcha at the same time?
Yes, you can do Nundro and Trekcha at the same time. In fact, Trekcha's in Nundro if you can find it, if you can see it. It's at the end of each session. Who should do Nundro? Those who really love Tantra and want to practice Tantra. Those hoping to do Tummo, 6 yogas of Naropa, or other Tsalung practices. Nobody, as far as I know, is going to teach you that without making you do Nundro first. So if those are the practices you want to do, you should be doing Nundro to prepare for them. If you feel a strong urge to do Nundro, if you feel a strong urge to do Dzogchen, but it's not working for you, in both these cases, it would behove you to do Nundro. Just because everyone else is doing it is not a good reason to do Nundro. To have done a Nundro is also not a good reason to do Nundro. So the first time I did Nundro to have done Nundro so that I could get the good stuff. Because where I was at that time, they wouldn't give you what I thought was the good stuff, which was teachings on Shunyata until you'd done Nundro. And when I finished Nundro, I came to my teacher and I said, I finished my Nundro. Give me the good stuff. And he looked me up and he looked me down and he got this really sad look on his face. Oh, it didn't work. Do it again. The second time I did Nundro, I actually got into it and did it to see what I could get, how much juice I could get out of each and every practice. That was way cool. I really enjoyed that. Thank you, Rinpoche, for making me do it a second time and do it right this time. Next question.
What text is a good introduction to Tantra?
Lama Thupten Yeshe's text called Tantra, I think, is your best introduction for some good stories about what Tantra is capable of. With a bit of the philosophy in, but mostly just wampum good stories, I'd go for Magic and Mystery in Tibet by Alexandra David Neal. Nice book, ancient book. I'd start there. Those two. You can't do Tantra from books. You need a teacher. Even if that teacher says, I'm not really your teacher, I'm just your babysitter, I'm not your mama, but I'll teach you for now. Which is kind of what I say to most people. Unless they truly prove themselves capable. And that takes 5 years, maybe. It's not fast or easy. Never less than 3 years. Next question.
Is it possible to have a bodhicitta wish to attain enlightenment for my sake first, and then help others attain it for theirs?
Yeah, you can have that stage for a little while. Look, self and others is an oxymoron. We're all fucking in this together. You're not an individual. You're an ecology. Look at your biome. Everything you think and you feel, how much of it's the critters in your guts? The little bugs that live in your eyelashes. Yes, there are bugs in your eyelashes. Go look it up. Be aware that you yourself are a multiplicity, not a singularity. So who the fuck do you think is going to get enlightened for the sake of others? Or rather, what do you think gets enlightened for the sake of others before the others? Consider that. Don't automatically assume you are whatever you think you are. Next question. We're getting to the last few, so
Yeah,
triage.
we are. It's coming up on almost 2 hours. I had a good question. Give me a moment here. When I look for mind on the intellectual level, I know that it goes away when I lose consciousness, which means it's conditional and, quote, findable. What do I do?
Well, that's not it. That's not mind. What you're finding is the idea of mind. That itself is an idea that's arising in your mind and dissolving in your mind. Don't look at the idea. Look at where it is. Remember, the idea of mind is not mind. If it was, I would be just as satisfied with the idea of a cup of coffee. This is not satisfying. This is. You see, there's a difference between an idea and a thing. The feeling of open awareness is a feeling. It comes and goes. It's finite. It has duration. It's not open awareness. It's a feeling. The very perception is a combination of sensory sensations with their interpretation. The very perception of open awareness is not open awareness, it's a perception. Perceptions come and go, thoughts come and go, feelings come and go, experiences come and go. The experience of open awareness is not open awareness, it's an experience, separate from an experiencer. An experience by an experiencer experiencing. That's not it. Keep going. All these things happen in mind. Look through, past, what is occurring to the infinite, open, spacious, vast expanse of where it occurs. And don't grab it with a thought. Don't think about it. Don't feel it. Don't perceive it or see it. Be it. You're this, you're the mind that does the thinking, the feeling, the perceiving. You always were, you always will be. Doesn't come and go. unborn, undying, always was and will be, the very awareness which pervades the entire universe. There are clumps here and there of thoughts, feelings, and perceptions, each one thinking itself an entity. Just a bit of the clumpiness that moves through the infinite open awareness. Clumpiness comes and goes, thoughts, feelings, perceptions. The infinite sky-like space of mind has never been in anywhere or any when. For where and when are thoughts that arise in mind and dissolve in mind? Keep looking. Find the seer of all that is seen. Do we have one more good one?
Do the primordial Buddhas speak when they appear in meditation?
Sometimes. Depends on what kind of nyam you're having. When they appear in meditation, they are archetypes, visions, symbols. Good thing. Sign you're going in the right direction. But like with any signpost, you don't go park the car and sit under the signpost because it says Manhattan 200 miles and you're headed to Manhattan. It just tells you you're on the right road and you keep driving. Same for these experiences. Next.
Shoot, I just had it. Hang on a moment. Can you give advice on how to handle feelings of shame, guilt, and humiliation after having been ostracized from a group like a family or a workplace group?
The same way you handle feelings of rage, pride, and excitement. They're just feelings. There is a story that supports them, in which they are entangled. Separate the story, the ideas of why you feel this, from what it is you feel, the sensation of the yi. You do this in the Dzogchen manner by simply looking through all the stories that arise, resting in infinite open awareness ground of mind beyond stories, and the stories vanish when you do that. And you are left with a sensation called a feeling because you feel it without a single word or story around it get its underwear off. No name for the feeling such as shame or humiliation. Just a feeling. Allow it to exist as it is, without staring at it, without clutching it or shoving it, without suppressing or justifying. Leave it be as it is, just a bit of life force moving through the channels. But if you can't do that, use manis. In a situation like that, where you are feeling rejected by others, unrejecting others will counter it. When you feel shame, it's pride. Really, they're the same thing. Humiliation is a kind of pride. It's just upside down pride. So with all of these, recognize them for the pride they are. The self-focusedness looking at you. And instead, open your heart to Chenrezig and allow it to reach out. And I think I will let us end there today, unless there's another priority.
I don't think so. And it's either very specific practice questions or questions that are probably better served sending you an email directly.
Okay, if you didn't get your question answered and you really care, then please email it to me. I will get to it. Remember, I answer all the short emails before I answer the long ones. Open your heart, open your mind. All your patterns, fears, hopes, clenches, belief systems. Relax, let go. Just leave it be and take refuge in infinite open awareness. Ge wandi nyur duda chi chi sala go pashu. May all beings recognize their own true nature, what they really are, and as such be freed. We are complete for today. I will see you next time. Check the schedule to see what's coming up. I think we've got Flight of the Garuda coming soon. Oh, and that fun one on how to magnetize wealth and happiness.
Next Sunday.
That's next Sunday. That's going to be fun. That's magic, just teaching you a bit of Tibetan magic for those who have a problem with wealth and depression, which is pretty common these days. It's so easy. Just a little magic of the simple variety. I'll see you then. That one will work even for non-Buddhists, what I'm going to teach. So if you've got a friend out there suffering from depression or poverty, who is seeking a way out rather than just happily wallowing in it, refer them over. And we're complete for today. For those of you who enjoyed this teaching in a language other than English, please offer Dana to your translator. On my website, there's a Dana page. I've got a button. The translators have buttons. People who do lead ongoing practice groups have buttons. Since nothing is ever charged for, you are simply free to make offerings as it pleases you. If any of you wish to become more involved with practice but have limited time, you might consider merging your practice with one of our yogis up in the Himalayas and sharing in the benefits. By keeping them in retreat, feeding them, supporting them, which only takes about $25 a month. That's an extra large pizza from a decent place without a beer. it's enough to support them on the basic level, rice and beans, which is really what they're most interested in. And allow them to remain in retreat, practicing. So if you don't have time, many of them do and will share it with you. For that, just send me an email that that's what you're interested in. And make it a separate email from your Dharma questions, because I handle it differently. Did I dedicate the merits?
You did.
I did. I thought I did. We're done for today, guys, then. I'll see you next week. Or next time.